Hey guys, Isabella here, and we are back for some more creepypastas. So today we're going to be reading Patient 367 by Miss M.S. Gran, whatever. I'm going to try and do my best to read this kind of slow, but kind of not because it's 30 minutes. But I also need to just get some of these videos out of the way because my life has been crazy. Busy with work because I'm working 2 jobs now and I'm trying to figure everything out. I'll do a vlog one of these days, maybe tomorrow after work. So, yeah, if you hear my fan in the background, I'm sorry. It's a million degrees in here. The heat's killing me. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. He says that he visits abandoned asylums, prisons, hospitals, and so on, and showcases them for others to see, I heard a voice saying. Opened my eyes and squinted, and I appeared to be lying in some sort of hospital room. What the hell had happened? Why was I here? I couldn't see anyone else around that the voice I just heard could belong to. Then again, I couldn't see much of anything. My head hurt, and my vision was blurry, and I closed my eyes and went over the last couple of days in my head trying to figure out what was going on. First off, I'm Jason. I manage a pretty successful YouTube channel where I, mostly alone, go out and investigate abandoned places. Urban exploring, I love it, man. I love finding a place that no one else has discovered yet, to roam. Sorry, I'm turning down my brightness because my eyes hurt. To roam halls of old school buildings, check out old prison cells or hospital rooms, and the occasional presumably haunted cabin in the woods. I shoot video while doing this and post it on YouTube. I have quite a large fan base too. I'm proud to say. In fact, I've been able to make a living doing this for the last 2 years now. I'm always respectful to the places I visit. I never take anything with me home, no matter what. And let me tell you, I found some pretty cool stuff over the time. I also always research the places I'm going to very well, so I can give it a fair representation in the videos. The last place I found, man, it was awesome. Located in the middle of nowhere, in the midst of a huge forest, its tall towers with what, in its glory days, would have been gleaming spires peaked high above the treetops, now forsaken and on the verge of collapsing in on itself. Since long bereft of their former majestic stature, this place was huge. Built in the classic Gothic style of the 19th century, its now blackened stone surface looked like something out of a classic knight's tale. The Farm Meadow Asylum of the Clinically Insane. The huge curved iron sign said above the gate leading into the premises. I found this place while researching on different forums online, and some people had talked about it, but I couldn't find anyone who had actually went there. Presumably because it was quite a hassle to get to. This was nowhere near I lived, but after reading up on it and looking at the photos, mind you, there were many of them to be found. I just knew I had to go. There wasn't much information to find about the place. I did, however, manage to find one old article from a local newspaper stating that it was some point in the early 1900s, a patient, who in the paper didn't mention by name, almost managed to burn the whole place down, and in the midst of confusion and disarray of the fire, actually managed to escape the asylum and never to be found again. I have decided to make it a road trip. I was going to start there at the Fairmeadow Asylum and move on there from the old prison, an abandoned train yard, and wrap it up with an old orphanage that had been turned into a military hospital during World War II. This will give me material enough for a couple weeks' worth of videos. It took me several hours and more than one wrong turn to finally roll up to the impressive gate. The gate, since long overtaken by nature, ivy grasping hold of the iron bars, climbing from the ground all the way up over the cursive letters spilling out on the name, stood silently looming over the forgotten entrance. Dead bushes and shrubberies grow wild all around the high fence surrounding the huge plot of land that belonged to the asylum. A gravel road led down the center of the front yard, on both sides decorated with what looked like apple trees. There were no apples now, though, only bare branches reaching out like long, bony fingers, looking to grab you if you came close. The once I assumed beautiful front yard was now heavily overgrown, and it has been many years since this place was last saw maintenance. I slowly drove down the narrow road that ended up in a roundabout in the front of the main entrance. The roundabout circled nice way to spell circled, around an old, cracked, and potentially partially ruined cast stone fountain. The once white stone figures in the middle, children-like angels that at one point presumably were pouring water out of their pots, now only filled with dirt, was missing both wings and other parts. Dark green moss and leaves, they gave the place a real ominous feel. Their blank stare, frozen in time, destined to look over the slow decay of this place until they themselves would be overtaken by nature and neglect. I parked my car and got my camera and bags out of the trunk. Grabbed my bags out of the trunk. I started filming outside the fountain, doing my intro and going over some of the history of the place. The Fairmeadow Asylum for the Clinically Insane, I started, opened in 1864, and it was at its peak of the home to over 600 patients that were put in here for a variety of reasons. Back then, it didn't take much to be deemed insane. It could be as little as being a bit paranoid, slow in learning, reading, writing, or what we diagnosed as ADD or ADHD. There were, of course, also the cases that were clearly more accurately described as truly insane. The patients hearing voices, speaking in tongues, people with schizophrenia and split personalities, and the ones having sudden fits of pure wild aggression against whomever was unfortunate enough to be closest at them at that moment. Though no matter what the reason of diagnosed insanity, this place had sure of a way of making sure you'd be calm and not acting up ever again. The lobotomy. We will get back to that as we make our way to the operating rooms where these horrific procedures took place, I said while moving closer to the entrance. As I was walking up to the stone stairs leading to the huge front door going on with my presentation, I got a sudden feeling of deja vu, only way stronger than I've ever had before. It felt like I had been there before, which of course I hadn't. It worn off like deja vu usually do, and I didn't think more of it until later. The doors were made of massive wooden planks several inches thick with a small square in the middle with metal bars forming an intricate pattern of a flower in the middle with leaves and branches reaching out to their outer frame. Why? I pulled on the cast iron handles and watched as the door slowly slid open, pushing broken branches and piles of dead leaves down on the front stairs to the sound of rusty hinges screaming and screeching like a wounded animal in a bear trap. The sound traveled to the rooms and hallways on the other side of the doors, echoing as it went, making it sound more like a thousand damned souls slowly burning in the fiery pits of hell. What a nice welcome, I commented on the video with a smile. The big entrance area opened up once inside the doors, a very high ceiling towering above, curved like the inside of a church, with lots of decorative details making its way into a very center where a huge chandelier still hung, motionless and covered in cobwebs. The floor was black and white, checkered stones cracked at places with a fair amount of dust. For the first time in forever, got to dance around in the wind again when I opened the door. To my left, from what I assume was the front desk, were nurses or orderlies who welcomed both visitors and new patients. To my right on the wall hung a huge floor plan over the asylum with directions to all the different facilities. There's a bird's-eye view drawing of the place, and it was built like a huge letter T with the main entrance I had just come through, located in the cross-section where the horizontal line met the vertical. The top line, or horizontal if you like, was the front of the asylum, which I had seen towering in front of me while driving down the gravel road. I refer to this as the main building. The vertical line now laying in front of me, straight in front of the entrance, I refer to this as the secondary building. To my right and left, huge hallways went down to the east and west wing, forming the horizontal line of the T. According to the map, there were 4 floors, including the ground floor and the basement right beneath where I was standing now. Beneath the whole complex, out the back behind the secondary building, there was a small house, a crematorium, and a cemetery with mostly unmarked graves where they had buried the patients that had died there, who had no one to claim their bodies or remains. On the ground floor, or first floor if you like, of the main building, in the west wing, there were mostly offices and smaller examination rooms, I assumed to be close at hand when checking in new patients. To my right, on the ground floor of the east wing, there was a big dining room with the adjacent kitchen, a recreation room, a library, and some smaller offices. Straight ahead of me on the first floor of the secondary building were the rooms that the staff could stay in overnight. Being as it was way out in the middle in nowhere, way out nowhere, staff probably worked a number of days in a row, rotating schedule before being replaced by their colleagues. So of course they all needed somewhere to stay for the night while working. In the entrance area, the center of the cross-section where the two buildings met, there were two huge staircases going up on either side of the door leading into the secondary building. This house was built before the invention of elevators, but it seemed that they had done some remodeling back in the early 1900s and fit one in to the east side staircase. They sure did everything in style back then. Now faded, of course, it looked like it had been a very nice-looking elevator back in its prime, with the brass door and golden frame around it, and a big, firmly carved golden arrow pointing to the floor numbers above. The curved marble stairs were at least 10 feet wide, going up in a semicircle from floor to floor. The handrails of the staircases, too, were an impressive feat of woodworking. The dark, smooth wood twisting around the beautifully detailed braid all the way from the top of the floor to the first, ending at the two big pillars with a covered in fine details at the sides, and the top being and on top being two hand-carved wooden owls with their wings to the sides and big eyes gazing out into the lobby towards the front doors. Probably representing wisdom, and in some psychological way, maybe they're to smooth new welcomers and family members. That way, this place of learning, information, and healing, and not just a place where you would drop off family members that you just didn't have the strength to deal with anymore, which of course it was a huge part. On the walls of the lobby hung big oil paintings of what I assumed were the head doctors of this place. They were like everything else in here, covered in dust and cobwebs. Some hung slightly crooked, and one had fallen to the ground, breaking the massive frame in two. Dr. John L. Thomas, it said, in golden letters at the bottom of the cracked frame. The painting showing an elderly gentleman with white hair and impressive beard, grasping a big round pipe, staring straight ahead with a pierce that almost made it seem like he was looking straight through you, now lay on the floor. What a shame, I thought. I turned back to the floor plan on the wall to the right. On the west wing second floor of the main building, they had patients' rooms 1 through 80, and on the east wing, 80 run through 161. On the second floor of the secondary building, there were classrooms and smaller meeting rooms. Third floor of the main building held patients' rooms 162 to 242, and on the west side was 243 and 323 on the east side. And in the secondary building, they had recovery rooms on one side of the hallway where patients would rest after surgeries, and isolation cells on the other if they needed to be kept separate from other patients for whatever reason. Fourth floor main building had patient rooms 324 through 404 in the west wing and 405 through 485 in the east wing. Some of the patient rooms were double rooms, and sometimes even if they were singles, they would put more than one patient in the rooms to be able to fit them all. In the secondary building, the fourth floor had operating rooms. This is where they performed the lobotomies of the patients the doctors decided were in need of. The floor plan showed the basement as storage and archive. I decided that I would start by checking out the first floor and move my way up, and with the camera in hand, I went down the hallway to my right, heading towards the rec room and dining area. It struck me how it seemed that people here had just up and vanished one day. Everything was left in place just like it had been evacuated in a hurry. There were food trays, an old hospital bed left in the hallway, and a bit further down I saw an old wheelchair lying on its side on the floor. The paint on the walls were mostly gone, curled up and cracked, showing a brickwork behind it. Here and there you could still see remnants of the old paint, though. It seemed like the bottom half of the walls had been painted green and the top half white. This was not just an aesthetic choice, everything in places that was psychological in some way. Green has always been thought of as a restful and quiet color, while white symbolized clarity and freshness. Subtle ways to unconsciously keep the patients in a tranquil state. I soon came up the entrance in the rec room. Two big white double doors stood open, welcoming me in the big room. As in the reception and hallway, it was a high ceiling with stucco work all around, and the same colors in the hallways could be hinted on the decaying walls. Huge bookshelves covered the entire wall to my right, and on the south wall, looking over the front yard and gravel road I had come down before, were enormous windows letting in a lot of light. Natural light had always been thought of as healing, so naturally they wanted their patients to get in as much as possible, though the grid of the metal bars in front of the windows did remove quite a bit of the feeling of freedom. Tables and chairs were scattered across the room, board games and books lay here and there. I took some shots of the books over the shelves at the large room before I ventured out into the hallway again, moving towards the library. When entering the library, you could clearly see that the building was not for the patients but for the staff. Mainly because of the colors of the room, everything was in a darker hue, and all the furniture was made out of dark wood. Massive, sturdy bookshelves all along the wall, leaving only free space for the windows to let some light in. Round, smaller coffee tables were positioned around. Sorry, I lost my place. Positioned around the room with big leather armchairs set in circles around them. If you look like a classic brandy and cigar room, if you know what I mean. The books on the shelves were mostly old medical books, encyclopedias, and so on. After getting some cool shots of the place, I kept going. The dining area was like any other, long rows of tables and walls once all white, now like the rest of the place, cracked and forsaken, with the same size barred windows as in the rec room. On the far east side, you'll get your tray and your food, and behind the counter you could see into the old kitchen, and that was about it for the first floor on the east side. I went back to the lobby and passed it going down the west side to check out some of the offices and smaller examination rooms. This was so cool. All the equipment was left behind. You had the classic medical cabinets with the glass windows on the upper half, some cracked but mostly in fine condition, except for the wood expanding and paint peeling off. Old syringes and bottles of God knows what was stood there. Metal beds nailed to the floor in the center of the rooms with the leather straps attached to the sides stood to be able to strap down patients who wouldn't sit still. I won't lie, it was a creepy place to be in all by yourself. It wouldn't take much to convince yourself that the place was haunted, no matter if you believe in that stuff or not. And this was just the first floor, with daylight still coming through the windows, but you couldn't help almost hear the screams and feeling of the anguish of the people that had been left here, especially those that probably didn't need this kind of help. Imagine being dropped off at a place like this by your family, being strapped to a table and getting shot with a syringe full of sedatives just because you weren't like everyone else. Knowing that you'd probably never see your siblings or parents again, knowing that this would be your life until the day you finally died and would be set free. The horrors that these walls had witnessed over the years, you really could feel it in the air. This house had not forgotten. Most of the examination rooms were all alike. The offices across the hall were your basic doctor's office with big desks, some armchairs, and bookshelves, nothing out of the ordinary, really. I decided to check out the patient rooms on the second floor instead, and went back to the lobby and started to walk up the stairs to the west wing. Suddenly, another deja vu hit me. Or not really a deja vu? I swear that for a split second, it was as if I was surrounded by people, doctors going up and down the stairs, voices coming from the rooms. It was as if I stepped back in time when the asylum was in full use. But with a blink of an eye, it was all gone again, and the staircase once again echoed empty and was back in full deterioration. There was no other sounds to be heard except for my own slight excited breathing. I stopped filming and looked back for the last minute of the film I had shot, but there's nothing out of the ordinary, except for a couple seconds that looked like I had some digital interference. Weird, I thought. Before I resumed filming, I went back up to the second floor. The hallway was in better shape up here than on the first floor, and you can more clearly see the color scheme used. The same one as on the first floor as the now faded green on the bottom of the half and white above. I chose a room at random and went inside. It was a single room and very sparsely furnished. Alongside the wall to my right was a bed, and this too had restraints firmly bolted to the side of the bed metal frame. A yellowish blanket still laid there, and on the far side of the room a narrow window was overlooking the front yard. This too with the metal bars in front of it, and two thin white see-through curtains hung from the curtain holder above. There was a small desk and dresser with a couple of drawers. I moved on and found another room that still had an old patient robe hanging over a chair with the name Fairmeadow Asylum, printed in big faded letters on the back. I spent some time getting a few shots before I decided to go check out what I thought would be a crown jewel of my day here, the operating rooms on the fourth floor. Just as I was about to exit into the hallway, I noticed that the battery on my camera was almost completely drained, which was odd since I hadn't been filming for that long. I knew I had double checked that the batteries were fully charged before I left for my long drive here. Usually these batteries kept going on for at least 5 to 6 hours before they start to drain. Is he still holding on to that character? The words flew by me in a whisper in the wind. Did I just hear that, or did I think it? It sounded like it came from down the hallway, but I couldn't be sure. I looked all around me and out down the hallway. Nothing. No one. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, shaking the unsettling feeling off of me, and changed the battery in my camera and moved on. I couldn't entirely shake the eerie feeling while walking back towards the stairs, though. I don't believe in ghosts, hauntings, and stuff like that, but I had to admit, even I was starting to feel uncomfortable here. I had to double check to make sure I wasn't really alone here. Hello? I screamed down the empty hallway, my echo being the only response. I quietly moved down to the room closest to me to see that there was no one lurking in there. A curtain hanging from the ceiling, the kind you use to separate the beds in a double room. I clearly saw the silhouette of a person on the other side. Fear grabbed me. Had I not been here by myself this whole time? Was I being followed by some kind of murderous lunatic, or worse? I slowly and quietly walked up to the curtain with a swift move and pulled it to its side. I grabbed a hold of the bed in front of me and sighed in relief when I realized it was only a mannequin. The kind used to practice medical procedures on. It looked old and ragged with multiple small holes around its eyes as if it had been stabbed over and over. I regained my nerves and started walking back out to the stairs. The nagging feeling still lingered in the back of my head, though. Where did all these voices come from? I got up to the fourth floor, and this was by far the one that most affected by time and neglect of all of them. It looked like it had been deteriorating for much longer than the other floors. There was no paint left at all on the walls, just bare, cracked bricks, and the ceiling was discolored, dark, and sunken at places. Looking as if it was about to completely cave in at any second, I hesitated. What if the floor would give out? What if the floor would give away? I'd fall. I could definitely get really hurt out here with no help around, or worse. What kind of urban explorer would I be if I didn't even attempt it? This was, after all, what I'd come here for. I mustered up my courage and took the first light step out into the floor. There were no stone plates here, and the floor was all moldy wood by the smell of it. Some looked burnt, and it creaked and cracked under my weight, but I kept going. I went to the hallway into the secondary house, but here you could see clear traces of the fire at some point. The walls had patches of darkness on them, as if they'd been exposed to intense heat. This must have been the fire I read about, I thought. Jeremiah Robertson! I turned my head so fast I almost fell over. I swear it was that someone stood right next to me and whispered in my ear. But just like before, there was no one. I suddenly realized I was still laying strapped on this goddamn bed. What the hell was going on? I yelled out. No response. I tried looking around to see where I was, but quickly realized even my head had been fixated. I couldn't move at all. Out in the corner of my eye, I could see what looked like one of the medical cabinets I had seen in the examination rooms earlier, only it looked brand new. Not at all like the ones I had seen, with the paint peeling off or cracked glass panes. Hello? I yelled again. Is anyone there? What are you doing to me? Where am I? Nothing, goddammit, I thought. I need to remember how I got here. Where was I? Right, the fourth floor. I closed my eyes and kept going over what had happened out here in the asylum. I had made my way into the long hallway, and above the door to my right there was a sign that was still readable, if only barely. Operating OPR2, it said. Operation Room 2, I guess, as I pushed the doors open. It seemed to be one of those old educational operating rooms, where you had the operating table in the center of the room and the bleachers around it on the secondary level for medical students or colleagues to observe the procedure. It was an uneasy feeling being there, knowing what had happened to so many people here. So many lobotomies. The state of this room was mostly a lot better than the hallway on the other side of the door, though still looking very much abandoned. The entrance and the area just by the door did, however, look badly scorched. The floor was covered in big white tiles, mostly still intact, and the operating table had rust eating away at the metal, and the blackboard behind it was more light gray than black. Big windows looking east reminded me that daylight was quickly disappearing. I took another glance at the blackboard and saw that you could still make out the writings and drawings that had once been there. From what I could gather, it looked like it had been a detailed description of the lobotomy. When performing a lobotomy, The patient was first rendered unconscious by electroshock. Although rumor has it that the step wasn't necessarily always done. Sometimes all it took was a good old head fixation and a quite conscious patient. The doctor above, uh, the doctor then placed a sharp ice pick-like instrument above the patient's eyeball. With a swift and hard hammer stroke, the doctor then struck the ice pick through the eye socket just above the eye, through the skull into the brain, severing connections to the brain's prefrontal cortex, which more than often left the patient in a vegetative state for the rest of his or her life. This procedure was performed on all kinds of patients, mostly of whom easily have had somewhat a normal life if given the option. I continued to look around the room, and to my dismay, I found the ice pick looking instrument and the metal hammer lying on the small table beside the operating table. I picked it up and imagined how it would feel to see that thing, and you know that it would soon be lodged into your brain. I felt nauseous just holding it and put it back down. I kept looking around and went through the drawers of the desk that stood in the corner. One drawer was full of metal bracelets with the name stamped to a small plate in the middle. These must have belonged to the patients, I thought. Just then there was about 20 of them. I picked one up. Janet McFerrin, it said. Looked at another. John Reese, Oliver Holden, the third said. I was about to close the drawer when one bracelet called out to my attention. Jeremiah Robertson. Sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. There's that name again, I thought. I swear I heard it there before in the hallway. That would be one hell of a coincidence, I thought. If I had just imagined a random name before, then found this up here, did I actually hear it? Then again, what kind of explanation do I have for hearing names echoing down an abandoned asylum hallway? Am I losing it? I decided that I had more than enough footage of this floor and all the surroundings. I thought it was best I start to pack up and head out before it got completely dark outside. I had booked a room at the motel near the interstate not far from the asylum where I could spend the night before heading out to the abandoned prison a couple hours away the next day. I went back out to the staircase and went down to the reception area. As I stood there picking up my gear, I cast a final glance up to the floor again. The basement. I hadn't checked out the basement. That's your fucking worst. That's how you get killed. I looked outside. I still had maybe an hour before the sun would set. I knew I would beat myself up later if I didn't check it out after all. I had come all this way. Would be silly not to check out the whole place, right? No, that's how you end up dead. So I got my camera back up from the bag and started to film again as I went around the nurse's desk in the reception. The room behind the desk was a lot bigger than I would have thought. It looked like some sort of break room for the nurses and orderlies, some tables and chairs, a sink, and small burning stove for smaller meals or heating water, maybe. In the back there was a door. Even though the letters themselves were gone, the way the sunlight had faded the color of the door, you could still make out the letters that once had been there. Basement, it said. I remembered that the floor plan had said that there was one thing being kept down there. It was storage and archives. But I thought it might have some cool artifacts down there, so I went. The door was heavy, all metal, probably in the case of a fire, I thought. Basements make good shelter, and a metal door would keep a fire out. Behind the door, a narrow, twisting stone staircase ascended into the utter darkness. I picked up a flashlight from my backpack and lit the steps in front of me as I cautiously took one step at a time, all the while narrating the video and explaining what I was doing. Room 272, it's time! I almost fell down the stairs. It was the same voice as before, echoing from somewhere near. But it was just like before, there was no one there. I was seriously contemplating my own sanity by now, but I kept going. I just needed to check out this last couple of rooms, and then I was out of here. I finally came down the basement after I don't know how many turns around that winding staircase, and shone the beam of the light emanating from the flashlight ahead of me. It was a large room with a slow stone ceiling. The walls and the floors were also made out of big blocks of massive stone. There was a small window to my right, almost as high up as the ceiling, no bigger than 12 by 6 inches, but even these windows had bars on them, even though no one would ever fit through those narrow holes. I noticed that the daylight was disappearing faster than I thought, and was all but gone already. I better hurry, I thought. God, I can't fucking read, I'm so sorry. The room was filled with cabinets and bookshelves. Folders and books were stacked all around in what looked to be no order at all. I moved closer and soon found a cabinet with lots of small drawers, kind of like what they once used to have in libraries before everything got digitalized. They were marked in alphabetical order. First drawer was A to C, second was D to F, and so on. I don't know why, but my hand immediately moved to the drawer marked P to R. I set up camera on the tripod I had been holding it with beside me and pulled out the drawer. I squeezed a flashlight between my head and shoulder and started to flip through the files inside. Peterson, Petrov, Perkins, Quinn, Quimby, Reed, Reynolds, Robertson, Robinson. Wait, Robertson. I pulled out the file and brought it along with the camera with me over to a table near the stairs. I opened it up and started to read. Patient number 367. Name, Jeremiah Robertson. Admission date, April 4th, 1912. Reason for admission, schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder. Treatment, psychotherapy, counseling, and physiosocial therapy, room 272. Comments. Patient had been showing no significant signs of improvement over the last 2 years of continuous therapy, even though the episodes of transitions between the different personalities at this time had been increased. The severity of them when they do happen to have without a doubt grown worse. We have therefore decided that patient number 367, Jeremiah Robinson, is a prime candidate for undergoing a lobotomy. We strongly feel that this is what it would take to cure him from this monstrous disease. Patients have been scheduled for lobotomy on November 14th, 1914. Signed, Dr. John L. Thompson. I felt ill. I couldn't explain why, I just did. I felt scared and out of breath like I had been running from something. When I turned to the next page of the file, all the blood left my head and came crashing down to my feet. All the hairs on my body stood up and I fell to the ground. There, on the backside of the first page, barely still attached, with some old glue, was a picture of Jeremiah Robertson. A picture of me. I had dropped the file on the floor from shock. I must have been mistaken. It's dark down here. It couldn't be. I grabbed the file and my camera and ran upstairs to the break room. I flung the heavy door wide open and more or less crashed into the nearest table and threw the file open again. There was no doubt that was a picture of me. How the hell could this be? The picture was without a doubt old, easily from 1912 when the file was created. It was faded, curled up in its corners, yellowish tint over the whole thing. But damn it, that was me! I had to sit down and catch my breath. This was insane. I couldn't sort my thoughts out. I tried to figure out a possible explanation for this. Maybe it was a relative of mine, someone I'd never heard of. Maybe it was just a coincidence, or my tired mind was playing tricks on me. I turned back to the first page, room 272. That's what I heard in the staircase, too. I needed to check it out. I was done filming, and I was freaked out to even making a YouTube video about this. I packed my camera and set the bags by the entrance door and started to walk upstairs again. I got to the third floor and turned left down to the east wing of the building. 268, 69, 270, 271. There, room 272. The door was ajar and made a high-pitched creak when I slowly pushed it open. It was nothing out of the ordinary, and it looked just like the other patient rooms I had seen here. It did, however, feel different. It felt familiar. I knew this room. I suddenly got extremely dizzy, and this was all too much. I had to sit down on the bed, but before I had finished that thought, everything turned black, and I had passed out. I woke up to the sound of voices near me. He says that he visits abandoned asylums, prisons, hospitals, and so on, and showcases them for others to see, I heard them say. Is he still holding on to the character? Yes, I'm afraid so. I opened my eyes, but my head hurts. Blurry vision. I couldn't move. Yes, it's patient number 367, Jeremiah Robinson, I heard from somewhere near. What the hell's going on? I yelled out. No response. I tried to look around to see where I was, and that's when I realized my head was fixated. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the medical cabinets. Mr. Robinson, I heard someone say. Who's there? I yelled. Where the hell am I? What the hell's going on? Mr. Robinson, I need you to calm down. Can you do that for me? The voice said. I am not Mr. Robinson, I replied. My name is Jason. You have no fucking right to... He interrupted me. Yes, Jason, I know who you are. We have met before, many times. I was stunned. What do you mean we've met before? Who are you? My name is Dr. John L. Thompson, and if you're willing to calm yourself, we can loosen those restraints and have a nice, calm conversation, all right? Yeah, all right, I stuttered. I was far too much in shock to make any kind of resistance at this point. I gave up and took some deep breaths. Two big men in short hair dressed in white uniforms started to release the straps holding me down and help me up in the sitting position. One of them stood behind me and the other next to a man I now recognized from the fallen oil painting from the lobby to be Dr. John L. Thomas. Mr. Robinson, he continued, I'm afraid you have suffered another episode. Listen, doctor, I said, I don't know who you think I am, but my name isn't Robertson. My name is Jason, and I'm a urban explorer. Yes, you've told us many times. I don't understand, I said. I've never met you before. I've never been here before. Now the hell did you clean up this place so fast? Everything looks brand new? I looked around and there was no paint fading off the wall, and the floor was impeccable. Rows of folders stood neatly positioned on the bookshelf. I glanced out to the room and saw nurses and orderlies walk past, patients in wheelchairs being pushed around. It looked like I was back at the place when it was in its prime. I sat with my mouth open trying to grasp what I was seeing. As I said, the doctor continued, I understand this is all very confusing. Let me assure you, we've been through this many times, you and me. It's been about time we finally do something about it, he mentioned, for the orderly next to him to fetch a wheelchair that stood in the corner. Room 272, it's time, someone shouted from the hallway. Come with me, he said, as I felt a big hand from the man behind me grab a hold of my arm and assist me down into the wheelchair. They started to strap my arms down to the wheelchair as I tried to pull away. Now, Dr. Thomas said. There's nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Robinson. This is for your own protection. We will release you as soon as we arrive, all right? Arrive where, I thought. I took another deep breath and tried to relax. I needed to play along to understand what the hell is going on. Okay, I said, nodding my head as I let them strap my arms down. Let me see, we're at 36, okay. We got out to the hallway, Dr. Thomas walking in front of me, slowly packing his round pipe with tobacco. Both the big guys walking behind me and one is pushing the wheelchair. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There were people everywhere here. The rooms had patients in them, nurses walking back and forth with equipment or charts. It was the first time I had noticed I had a robe on, the same I had seen before from the abandoned rooms before with the Fair Meadow Asylum text printed on the back. I started to feel the panic creep up on me. As I said before, Dr. Thomas continued, we had this conversation many times before. Unfortunately, I don't think our sessions have had a real impact on your condition. Even though the episodes come less frequently, I've noticed that when they do, they tend to affect you deeply every time. Every time you seem more and more convinced of this reality of yours. We had come to a stop in front of the now fully functional elevator. I saw the arrow above it moving from floor 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3. A clear bell rang as the doors slowly opened. The doctor walked behind me and thanked the orderlies. I can take it from here, he said, sending them back in the hallway to the third floor. He rolled me into the elevator and pressed a button for the fourth floor. Now don't you worry about this, Mr. Robinson. We are quite sure that this will get rid of your condition once and for all. Rid you of this Jason personality you have conjured up. Now the panic set in for real. No. Where are you taking me? I'm not a fucking personality. I'm a person. You can't do this. I started to freak out as the doors slowly opened on the fourth floor. Two new, just as big orderlies were waiting on the other side of the elevator doors to assist the doctor. Once again, he walked in front while I was being pushed by one of these clones. They all looked alike. I now knew where we were going. We took a turn into the secondary building and in the operating room too. It looked the same as it had done when I was here just moments ago, though as the rest of the place it was spotless, shiny, and looked brand new. The doctor came up to me and put a hand on my shoulder. Relax, he said. We have done this many times before. You have nothing to worry about. Soon you will be back to normal. Back to good old Mr. Robinson. He reached out and unclasped my bracelet from my wrist. I haven't even noticed it before. Then he went over to the desk in the corner where the nurse was sitting there. He had handed the bracelet over to her, and I saw her dropping it into the drawer. Mr. Robinson scheduled for a lobotomy today, November 14th, 1914, he said to her. 1914, I cried out. Are you people insane? It's 2021, and you can't fucking perform lobotomies on people. Mr. Robinson, I do have to insist you have to calm yourself down, otherwise we're going to have to sedate you, the doctor said, turning his head towards me, giving me a stern look. One of the orderlies went over to a cabinet to my right and unlocked the glass doors. As if ready to be if they needed to make it good on their threat, I had to figure out a way out of here. I tried to calm myself down and look around the room. It wasn't until I had noticed all the people on the second floor looking down at us. More doctors, young men holding pens and papers. Medical students, I assumed. They're all looking at me in a way you look at a monkey at a zoo. This is how they must feel, I thought, like a specimen. An experiment waiting to happen. I continued to scan the room. Dr. Thomas was now standing by the blackboard, now actually black, and drawing something up while addressing the audience on the second level. I looked to my right, and there was a medical cabinet, now with the glass door open. There were supplies stacked on the shelves inside, syringes, tubes, and a big bottle of ethyl alcohol with a big flammable warning on the side. I looked over at the Dr. Thomas, who was still writing and drawing on the blackboard while talking loudly to the onlookers. The orderlies had sat down in 2 chairs to my left, fully engaged in listening to what the doctor was talking about. I slowly tried to slide my hand out of the restraints. They hadn't fastened my right hand as hard as my left. Maybe if the doctor turned to me, pointing with his whole arm, presenting me to the room. I stopped trying to get loose immediately. One of the big guys in the white came over and rolled me into the center of the room, right next to the operating table. It wasn't until then I recognized what was being written on the blackboard. It was the same description as I had seen last time I was here. The step-by-step instructions to the lobotomy. My head was spinning. I couldn't grasp what was going on. All I knew is that I needed to get the hell out of here. Everyone's gaze was yet again focused on Dr. Thomas's presentation, and I very stealthily rubbed my hands from left to right. Finally, I felt it come loose. It felt like, for now, as I left it like that for now as to not draw attention to myself. I need to loosen my left hand as well, but there was no way that would go unnoticed. I was sitting in front of for at least 10 people. I needed to think. "Excuse me," Dr. Thomas said. "Would it be possible—" "Excuse me, Dr. Thomas," I said. "Would it be possible to turn me around so I can see what you're writing? After all, it is me you're going to be getting the benefits of this treatment. I think it would be interesting to see how it's done." The doctor turned his head and smiled. "There, see? Now you've calmed down. Now you're starting to come to your senses." He messaged for one of the orderlies to come and turn me around. I had now my back to the audience and slowly slid my right hand out and quietly and very carefully loosened my left hand. I had just placed my right hand back under the restraints when Dr. Thomas turned to face the room once more. "And that's about it," he said. "Any questions?" He was done with his presentation. I didn't have long now. I saw a small table I'd seen before, now to my left, and there it was, the ice pick and hammer, gleaming in the light. Dr. Thomas got out his pipe while listening to a student asking something and stuffed it with tobacco once more. From his pocket he presented a box of matches. He lit one up and held it to his pipe, drawing deep puffs to get it going. Smoke rose to the ceiling, and it had a sweet smell to it. He threw the box of matches down on the table beside me, and I knew this was my chance. As quickly as I could, I almost flew out the wheelchair, grabbing the matches as I went. I rushed over to the medical cabinet and grabbed the bottle of ethyl alcohol and held it up to the air. "Wait!" Dr. Thomas shouted, as the orderlies were about to run and tackle me. "Mr. Robinson, now don't do anything hasty here. Remember, we're all here to help you." "Yeah, we don't remember asking for your help," I screamed. I'm not not about to let you hammer a fucking ice pick into my skull, you understand?" "Calm down," he said, walking towards me. "You don't actually think you can walk out of here? You can just walk out of here, do you?" I backed up as he was approaching, raising the bottle high. "Stop!" I yelled. "Don't come any closer!" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the orderly slowly walking along the wall towards me. An incoherent grasping and mumble was heard from the students and doctors above us. With all my force, I threw the bottle on the floor, sending shards of glass flying across the room. The content of the bottle splashing all over. I lit a match and held it threatening in the air. "I said stop!" I yelled again. The orderlies looked over at Dr. Thomas for confirmation of what to do. He held his hand in the air. "Now be careful, Mr. Robertson. That is highly flammable." "Oh, I know," I said. "You let me go, I will burn this fucking place to the ground. You hear me?" One of the men in white saw his chance and leaped towards me. His quick movement startled me and dropped the lit match on the floor. A flash of light dazed the room, and in seconds you could feel the heat licking your skin. The room was ablaze, and I turned around and ran. The commotion had gotten the attention of everyone else on the fourth floor, now hurrying to Operation Room 2 to see what happened, and help them put out the fire, but it quickly spread. It spread quickly. High flames whipped in the ceilings and spreading out to the hallways, floor, walls, everything caught fire. I hurried down the stairs, second floor, all empty. They must have run upstairs, I thought. First floor, there was that goddamn oil painting of Dr. Thomas still on the ground with a cracked flame. Wait. I did a double take and looked around again. Wait, what? Everything was back to being abandoned and forsaken. The dust and cobwebs once again had claimed the house. But I could still hear the screaming commotion from the fourth floor, albeit a bit distorted, but it sounded like a lot further away than it actually was. I ran towards the door and saw my camera bag just where I left them before. Everything started to take a weird turn. I grabbed them and bolted through the front door. I was outside, and I was back in my own clothes. There was my car. I threw my bag in and jumped in after, turned the key and floored it. Gravel shot out of my rear tires like a machine gun blazing, ricocheting off the stone angels in the fountain as I took off towards the exit. As I looked in my rearview mirror, the asylum looked like it had just got done when I first came there. But I swear I thought I could see smoke rising from the roof. I am now writing this from my motel room near the interstate. I still have no idea what I just went through, but I think I'll have a break from urban exploring for now. I'm glad I got out there without having my brains turned to mashed potatoes. If that shit even actually happened, I don't know. There's one thing, though, that's a bit weird. When I came to the motel, they couldn't find my registration. It wasn't until I told them what room I had gotten a confirmation for that guy, uh, for that the guy found it. Only it was registered to a Jeremiah Robertson. I got no idea what to even say about that. That's fucking messed up. I have no words. So yeah, I'm sorry if shit got a bit my reading got a bit hazy. It's very hard to read in the dark with such bright light. It fucking makes my eyes disoriented. And I'm also very exhausted because it's almost 11 o'clock. But yeah, I'm gonna probably do another one tonight, maybe, or tomorrow morning before work. And maybe do some tomorrow night as well. So hope you all enjoyed for that one. And everything's down in the description. Love you guys, and I'll see you soon.